Hey guys, welcome back to Games of War. Today's episode we're going to take a look at some of my personal favorite underrated games for the DS. Without a doubt, one of my favorite handheld machines of all time. The Nintendo DS just completely blew me away with its amazing, creative, innovative, diverse library. It definitely had kind of a slow start. Even Nintendo wasn't quick to call this the replacement for the Game Boy. This was the kind of third pillar. I think that way if it failed, they could always go back to the Game Boy line, but that wasn't needed definitely because the system, after about a slow, rocky first year, publishers, developers kind of struggling to figure out what to do with the two screens and the touch screen, which was pretty new at the time in terms of technology. But once they figured it out, man, there was no looking back. The DS, much like the PS2, has got probably one of the most diverse creative libraries out there, the unmatched the creativity on the system. So a real soft spot for the DS. And let's go ahead and take a look at some of my favorite underrated games. Thank you for watching. As always, hope you enjoy. Now, my last video on the DS was a top RPG list for the system, so I'm going to avoid RPGs in this video. If you are looking for some DS recommendations in terms of RPGs, I'll definitely leave a link below in the description. I covered games like Avalon Code, Nostalgia, Infinite Space, the Luminous Arc series, Endless Frontier, Sands of Destruction, Radiant Historia. So if you are in need of some RPG recommendations on the DS, definitely check out my top Nintendo DS RPG video. I also did a kind of a point-and-click adventure game episode on the DS a while back, and I talked about some of my favorite series of all time, like the Professor Layton and the Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney games. One of my favorite companies ever, Sing, R.I.P., makers of the brilliant Hotel Dusk series, Trace Memory again, the Touch Detective series, and one of my personal favorites, Time Hollow. Fans of visual novel adventure games, this is what brought the genre back for myself personally. But as I said, I want to give you guys a fresh batch of games to look out for, so let's go ahead and get started. So let's begin by talking about an amazing set of shooters in the system. We have got Nanos Trade 1 and 2. Now this is done by Shinin, who also did the Iridian games on the Game Boy Advance, Iridian 1 and 2. And if you played those games, you know that those games pushed the GBA to its limits graphically. Amazing looking set of games, and the Nanos Trade series is no different. A graphical tour de force for the DS, pushing the system to the limits. Amazing bosses. Screen is filled with chaos, bullets everywhere. They're not bullet hell shoot 'em ups. They're definitely playable and definitely beatable. It just takes some skill. A ton of fun. You've got a life bar in this, so it's not one-hit deaths. I could never stand shoot 'em ups where one hit and you die. However, if you do smash another ship or run into something in the environment, you will die with one hit. But other than that, you've got a nice little shield that's going to keep you alive. You can take multiple hits. Nanos Trade 1 is an amazing game. Couldn't believe how good this looked on the system. Nice, bright, colorful graphics. Amazing level design. Not too many levels, but what's there is super impressive. I remember you play the first 3 levels. After you finish those, another set opens up, and then another set after that, and then boss battles and whatnot. An amazing shoot 'em up. Nanos Trade 1 has got 4 selectable special weapons that are on the touchscreen below, and that's the one complaint I have on the first Nanos Trade, was that to switch your special weapons, you have got to take your eyes off the top screen where all the chaos is happening and kind of look down on the bottom screen to switch with the touch screen, and it can take you out of it a little bit. It's not a deal breaker, but definitely is something that they fixed in the second game. Now, these 4 special weapons on the touch screen, each time you use one, it's going to kind of deplete your special meter. You're able to fill that up by taking out waves of enemies in succession. After you kill the last enemy in the wave, it's going to release a blue power-up. You pick that up, and it's going to refill a portion of your special weapon. So it really becomes quite tactical in the use of these special weapons, and kind of not using too much and taking out the enemies quickly and being able to fill it back up, so you always have some special weapons available for you. The first Nanos Trade features a top-down perspective, just such a clean look. The explosions look great, great music, a little light on content, as I said, but what it lacks in content makes up with the sheer quality of content. It's just an amazing shooter. Nanos Trade 2 arrived a few years later, and it was an amazing follow-up. As well as the top-down levels, Nanos Trade 2 also features side-scrolling levels, so it's definitely got some nice variety in there, and it fixed my main complaint from the first game, was that no more touchscreen weapon switching. It's now assigned to buttons, so you're not going to be taking your eyes off the screen. Once again, the graphics are incredible. They look even better than the first game. The second game also adds a nicely developed story and voice acting. You find out that Nanos Trade is actually a virus. This virus has been infecting and controlling machines, all with malicious intent. So as you go through level to level, taking down bosses and enemies, collecting more data in how to defeat this virus. So a nice touch to add a story and nice voice acting, nice production value, and a virus theme, which is appropriate for what the hell's going on in the world right now. And this spawned a third game as well, Nano Assault on the 3DS, where it kind of delved more into the virus storyline. An amazing series. The third one is great on the 3DS as well. If you can check out Nano Assault, once again pushing that system to the limits, beautiful 3D visuals. So this is a great series. Absolutely fell in love with the first game. The second one made a ton of improvements, added a nice storyline, fixed a few problems from the first game. Production value is top notch, great music. If you are looking for a shooter series in the DS, look no further than the Nanos Trade series. Completely amazing in every way. Highly recommended. Next up, we've got Tokyo Beatdown, and I've always loved a good beat 'em up dating back to Final Fight Streets of Rage back in the 16-bit times. Tokyo Beatdown is a hilarious game from start to finish. It's definitely not going to win any awards in the visual department. Kind of blocky looking characters, the animation is not that smooth, the controls are kind of sloppy if I'm being honest, but what this game is completely charming in terms of its dialogue and its script, and its Lewis Cannon is definitely the star of the show. Lewis Cannon is a member of these elite group of beast officers, and these officers punch, kick, shoot, and ask questions later, and they don't take any shit. Some of the situations you find yourself in are completely laugh out loud, hilarious. He's just got such funny shit to say, man. He will kick your ass before you even know what happened. Definitely hand you your ass. Lewis Cannon does not shy about saying what is on his mind. He will stop at nothing. The storyline has an old rival enemy that has gotten together with some new shady underworld people and are intent on taking over the city. Like I said, the story's not going to win any awards, but it's how it's told and the humor that really steals the show. Lewis Cannon being one of my favorite characters ever in a beat 'em up. He is just so damn funny with that slick white suit. What a fancy bastard, man. He takes no shit. In terms of actual beat 'em up controls, you're not going to have like combos that are upgrading as you go. You're not going to purchase new moves. It's all kind of disappointing in that respect, but you do collect move scrolls that extend your base combos. So as you go through the game, you're going to find these scrolls, and you'll go from like having a basic 3-4 hit combo to 5, 6, 7 hit combo, and it's pretty entertaining that way. Punching, kicking, grabbing. You've got some cool throws, some breakable objects. You can also pull out guns and shoot for a limited amount of bullets. The game sports multiple endings, and the story unfolds via like comic book style cutscenes. Overall, Tokyo Beatdown has just got something special about it. Everything comes together to form a really entertaining game from start to finish. It's not going to take you forever to beat it. It's a pretty short game, but I guarantee that you will fall in love with Lewis Cannon, and you will come back to this game for the replay value. It's just a great beat 'em up and a worthy addition to the DS library. Next up, we got Touch the Dead, and this game really resonates with me due to my love for the House of the Dead series. Now, this is not related to that in any way. It just feels a lot like it. It's got that same kind of campy B-flick atmosphere. You play as Rob Steiner, who is doing his time like any convict, laying on his mat there in an Ashdown Hole State Penitentiary, when all of a sudden the doors swing wide open and a gun mysteriously appears, and at that point it is up to you to get out of your cell and just start shooting the shit out of these zombies and undead that have overrun the penitentiary for some reason. Not much explanation as to what the hell is going on, but you don't need an explanation in this kind of game. Now swap out the light gun with the stylus, and you've got your light gun shooter on the DS, and it's got some annoying mechanics when it comes to reloading. You've got to kind of swipe the stylus across the screen. It can definitely kind of be a pain in the ass, but I fell in love with the hilarious campy dialogue. The main character looks like he's taking a shit constantly. He's got this scowl on his face, and the levels themselves are pretty bland. It's very repetitive, and there's not a whole lot of enemy types, but it's enough to get the job done. You've got your big fat guys, your skeletons, your undead throwing their heads at you. A lot of fun to play. I really do enjoy Touch the Dead. It's not going to win any awards, but there's a lot of blood and guts, so it definitely earns its mature rating on the DS. If you're a fan of House of the Dead or light gun shooters, and the stylus replacing that light gun sounds like something that you're interested in, definitely check out Touch the Dead. I really enjoyed this one. One of my favorite action, kind of Metroidvania style games in the DS is definitely Monster Tale. A complete blind buy for me. I was in Best Buy searching through the DS games one day, and I think this was in the bargain bin for dirt cheap. Definitely the definition of a hidden gem. I know that term gets tossed around a lot and it's been said to death, but if there ever was a game that represented a hidden gem, it's definitely Monster Tale. You play as Ellie, who is kind of walking through the woods and discovers this bracelet. Upon putting it on, she is transported into this Monsterland, and she meets her little pet companion, Chomp. Soon after arriving in Monsterland, Ellie discovers that she is definitely not alone. Other kids have crossed over, and there's kind of a prophecy or legend where a child appears in Monsterland with a pet. She's going to, or he is going to, end up saving this monster world from imminent danger, and they are treated as royalty, as gods. And some of these kids are abusing that status and using it for evil. Ellie is definitely a good-natured kid, and it's up to her to save the monster land. I gotta say, man, this game caught me off guard through and through. I was not prepared for how much I fell in love with the game in terms of its visuals. Very bright and colorful. The gameplay controls were spot on. Level design was great. And I've got to say, a lot of Metroidvanias can suffer from immense and intense backtracking that can get really annoying and stale and old. This game manages to avoid that. It keeps everything fresh. Ellie is constantly learning new and helpful and intuitive power-ups and combos. And she starts off as a fairly competent brawler, but by the middle and end of the game, she becomes a killing machine, able to juggle enemies in massive combo counts. She controls effortlessly, smooth. Controls are just spot on in this game. Bright, colorful graphics. I absolutely fell in love with the game. It's very charming. In addition to the Metroidvania exploration, combat, puzzle solving, there's also a pet sim element with your buddy Chomp. It's really cool how it's done. Your bottom screen is where Chomp hangs out, and you can kind of summon him to the top screen, and he's going to be helping you attack, flipping switches, helping you puzzle solve. And after he's been out for a while, you gotta kind of send him back down to the bottom screen to refill himself. And any like cookies or items that you find for Chomp, you can kind of stick down to the bottom screen. And when he retreats to the bottom screen, you see him down there like eating the items and training and getting stronger. And you can kind of level him up accordingly and choose different abilities and the way you level him up. Really intuitive stuff. It really works well. Chomp is definitely an asset to the game, and it's really cool watching him evolve and grow stronger as you play the game more. Fantastic music. Overall, just a charming platformer Metroidvania style game through and through. Came out of nowhere for me. I had absolutely no idea what this game was, no hype at all, but it definitely delivered. I remember a few years ago they announced that Monster Tale was going to come out on the 3DS, kind of like an enhanced version of this game, or maybe like a sequel of some kind, but sadly Dream Rift, I think they made that Epic Mickey on the 3DS, and after that they just kind of disappeared and no information was leaked or talked about anymore. I was really looking forward to having a 3D, stereoscopic 3D, new Monster Tale on the 3DS with some upgraded graphics. Man, I was really excited for that. Sadly, it was just never was to be because it never came out, and this was the last time we would see Ellie and Chomp in action, but definitely don't let this one pass you by. A true gem of a game. Next up, we got one of my favorite action-adventure games on the DS. That's Insecticide. And this game's got kind of a checkered and really troubled past. It was supposed to come out on the PC in 2 parts. Part 1 came out. Unfortunately, the company and publisher went out of business, so Part 2 never came out. It was released on the DS in its entirety. However, it's kind of a dumbed-down port. It's missing some of the cinemas and voice work of the PC. The creators have expressed interest in kind of maybe getting a Kickstarter together because they are very passionate about the game and the universe. They wanted to get it finished, maybe helped out and released, but unfortunately, as of this filming, the game has been forgotten. The DS version is really enjoyable. A couple of the guys that worked on the dialogue and detective sections in this game were longtime LucasArts employees. Back in the day, they worked on Police Quest, King's Quest, Leisure Suit Larry. So these guys definitely know how to do their dialogue sections, some great humor. So this game combines detective sections where you're going to be like the classic LucasArts stuff, where you're going to be like inventory puzzles, branching dialogue paths, with a action adventure game with like shooting and platforming. The game takes place in the crime-ridden city of Troy. In this universe, insects have taken over. Humans are definitely like a subpar, second-class citizen type thing. In the opening, there has been a huge murder that takes place at the soda company. And it's up to you playing as a detective to kind of solve this, and you're going to be unleashed upon this world of crazy, insane insects. The dialogue, like I said, LucasArts guys, they know what they're doing. It's beautifully written, hilarious, very clever. The puzzles are great. The detective sections are definitely, the hints to that old LucasArts style of writing and humor. A ton of fun to play. The other sections of the game, namely the shooting and the platforming, not quite up to snuff. It's not as captivating as the detective sections. But overall, as a complete package, definitely enjoyable. Great to see 2 genres mixed together beautifully on the DS. Very ambitious. A great world they've created here. Lunar Nights is definitely my kind of game. I absolutely loved the Beatdown series of games, aside from the one hindrance, which I'm sure anybody that's played this series knows. It's the goddamn freaking sun-censored bullshit cartridge that you couldn't fool for anything. So if you didn't have sunlight, you weren't going to make progress in certain aspects. Thankfully, this game does away with that, although you can use it if you want to punish yourself some more. Top screen of the DS has a full day-night cycle. Sun, moon, so it uses that incorporated into the gameplay. As the game begins, you're in a pub and you're Lucian, who's a very dark swordsman, and you overhear a couple of patrons talking about this very powerful vampire and how they're afraid of him, and the vampires have developed this thing called a parasol, which they are using to manipulate the sunlight and cast eternal darkness over the land. It's up to you playing as Lucian and eventually Aaron, who is a apprentice gunslinger, to put a stop to these vampires once and for all. The gameplay is kind of like a dungeon crawler, hack and slash gameplay for Lucian, and gunslinging for Aaron. Both are a lot of fun. It's from Kojima, so you're going to see some nods to Metal Gear Solid. In Metal Gear, you could kind of bang on walls and it would alert the guards, like, oh, what was that? This game you can whistle by blowing into the microphone of the DS. Pretty cool feature, gets the enemy's attention. Now in the original Beatdown games, after you defeated the vampire, you have to kind of haul the casket out into the sunlight, where you needed real sunlight to kind of vanquish them and kill them for good. This game does something a little different. It kind of shoots you out into outer space with a pretty cool mini game using the stylus, and it's really kind of creative because of the whole parasol thing that these vampires have developed to kind of blanket the sun. You've got to go up high enough out in outer space to escape that parasol and vanquish them in the sun. So it's a really cool mechanic, nice deep gameplay. Being a Kojima production, this is top-notch production value, cinemas, cutscenes, voice acting, really special stuff for the DS. If you liked the Beatdown games, or you like vampire hunting games, or you're a fan of Kojima and his work, definitely check out Lunar Nights. It's a one-of-a-kind action RPG and a very worthy follow-up to the Beatdown games on the Game Boy Advance. Miami Law is a pretty interesting game on the DS, one that I ended up enjoying more than I thought I would. When this game was first being released in early reports, we're kind of drawing parallels with Snatcher. While the end resort is nowhere near as good as the Sega CD game, it still is a fun game for what it's worth. You play as Law Martin and his partner Sarah Sterling, and they're both cops in the Miami Police Department. Now this is a menu-based game, so right away it's going to turn a lot of people off, but if you enjoy strong writing and dialogue between characters, non-player characters, cops, the writing in this is definitely the star of the show. It's very adult. There's a lot of crazy shit going on in terms of infiltrating drug rings, betrayal, terrorist plots, death, murder, cover-ups. It's all pretty adult stuff, and I'm surprised that a lot of the stuff flew in a teen-rated DS game, of all things. But overall, the gameplay, lots of menu-based point-and-clicking, reading, and there is some stuff to break up the monotony in terms of reading. Law Martin has got the mini-games that are like driving and shooting, while Sarah has got more of a puzzle-solving aspect. They both come together to give you some nice variety in terms of gameplay. You're not going to be just reading all the time. There is some action sequences to break up the monotony. And overall, it's pretty enjoyable watching these characters get to know each other as the game goes on. I found out later on that Victor Ireland and his team did the localization and writing for this game, which Victor Ireland did all the Working Designs games back in the day, so definitely I can see the humor and the strong writing, because by the second case in this game, man, shit just gets absurd and over the top in terms of like going undercover and massive terrorist plots and drug rings. It's all pretty absurd stuff, and it's pretty enjoyable, easy to follow. I really enjoyed most of this game had to offer. A couple of things that were annoying was that most of these games of this variety, you've got multiple decisions to make, and that kind of can lead to branching story paths. Not so much in this game. If you make the wrong choice, the game just abruptly ends, which can really take you out of the zone. And there's a couple of really unbelievable sections, like a undercover drug ring that an entire force has been working years to try to bring down and haven't been able to, yet you and your partner are able to do so in a few hours after getting the case. Stuff like that can kind of make you wonder, but you can't take it too seriously. Overall, it's an enjoyable game, one of a kind on the DS, very mature storytelling, and a pretty enjoyable story. Overall, production value is really good, and if you're a fan of text graphical adventures and you like police kind of undercover shit, definitely check out Miami Heat, one of a kind on the DS, and definitely worth it. I've got to bring up Ninja Gaiden Dragon Sword. I'm a huge fan of the Ninja Gaiden games, and in going back through the DS library and playing a lot of the games recently and spending a lot of time with the system, I almost forgot about Dragon Sword, man. This is an exclusive game from the ground up for the DS, and I really was scratching my head when it was first announced due to the all stylus-based combat. I'm like, man, this cannot be, it just can't work. Part of the charm of the Ninja Gaiden series is that razor-sharp combat with non-button mash, and you really got to know your shit when it comes to Ninja Gaiden, or you're going to get your ass handed to you. And the stylus combat in this game works, man. It handles beautifully. You're going to be pulling off all kinds of crazy combos and all kinds of crazy shit using the stylus. It just feels natural, intuitive, and I can't believe they pulled it off. An amazing looking game on the DS. You actually hold it sideways like a book. So if you played Hotel Dusk or the sequel, you know what I'm talking about. Holding the DS sideways and using the stylus for all the combat. You'd think is a train wreck of a game, but man, the high production value, amazing visuals, silky smooth combat. If you're a fan of Ninja Gaiden games, definitely check out Dragon Sword on the DS. If you don't believe me, you will be a believer after playing the game for 5 minutes. It really does everything very well. A standout entry in the DS, definitely worth a look for fans of Ninja Gaiden. I was really impressed. Next up, we've got a couple of games from one of my personal favorite developers on the DS, Way Forward. These guys were absolute masters of their 2D class. Their sprite work was unmatched. They've got 2 games here running on the same engine. They've got a Contra 4, which is a sequel to one of the most popular franchises of all time. Then we've got Thor, and it's like, Thor, what the fuck? Thor, looking at this, you might think it's a movie, like a video game movie port that's just horrible. Most reputations of movie to video games have not been great, but Thor actually runs on the Contra 4 engine with some beautiful results. Both games take place on the DS's dual screens, stretching high, and it's just amazing to see Thor done justice, man. It's not based in the movie. It's based on more of like the lawns of the comic, and it's an amazing looking game. The sprite work is fantastic. The beat 'em up action is intense. The bosses are screen filling, just masters of sprite work. If you're into beat 'em ups, 2D beat 'em ups, you've got to check out Thor, man. This is done right. Upgrades, using special moves, new abilities, tons of enemies to beat the shit out of. It's a great combo system. I can't recommend Thor enough. It totally surprised me. Whereas a lot of the home console ports of Thor were kind of shit. This is a true original beat 'em up from way forward. Beautifully done. Now, Contra 4. I gotta say, man, for all the hoopla that Contra gets, everybody loves the original NES games and some of the sequels. Contra 4 is without a doubt the best in the series, in my opinion, hands down. It doesn't get enough love. This is a masterpiece through and through. Once again, way forward. Masters of the DS. The sprite work is just amazing. The level design is great. The use of the two screens is in full effect. You've got a grappling hook. You can easily jump to the top screen, back down to the bottom. Much like the Alien Wars, you've got two weapons you can hold at a time, and you can swap them, and all different kinds of great weapons. The shoot-em-up action is intense. It's brutally difficult, man. I barely made it out of the first level alive. I had to really work and work and work at it, chip away to make progress. Now, in terms of a timeline, Contra 4 takes place 6 months after the conclusion of Contra 3, the Alien Wars on the Super Nintendo. With the Red Falcon alien threat defeated, and the alien wars come to a close. Unfortunately, the peace on Earth doesn't last long. There's a new threat looming. A new alien entity called the Black Viper is launching attacks at Earth. Now, as these attacks start popping up all over and start wreaking havoc, the Earth Federation Force calls forth its strongest Contra soldiers to put a stop to the Black Viper once and for all, and Contra 4 begins. I really can't praise Contra 4 enough, man. The gameplay that you know and love from Contra is represented beautifully on the DS. Challenge is there. The level design is there, graphics, visuals, sprite work, fantastic. Without a doubt, the best game in the series in Contra, in my opinion. Just a must play. Definitely fans of run and gun action. Do not miss Contra 4. If you like beat 'em ups, do not miss Thor, Way Forward, or Struck Gold in the DS. They are both highly worth it. Lux Pain is one of my personal favorite adventure point-and-click games on the DS. A very dark and mature themed story. A rare treat for the DS. Just an amazing game through and through. Very dark, drab atmosphere. Now in this game, the city it takes place in, there is a horrible virus infection called the Silent, and it is wreaking havoc on the citizens of the city. It's infecting these people and causing them to commit horribly violent acts, atrocious crimes that they normally never would think of doing. Now, it's up to you as Itsuka. You work for an organization called Fort, and you have psychic powers, and it is up to you to use your psychic powers to kind of put a rest to this virus, find the original host, and kind of destroy the virus once and for all and return the city back to its normal state. The game is very pleasing to look at. The lush, static backgrounds. The action in this game takes place in the bottom screen using your psychic powers called Sigma, and you're going to use these powers to kind of scratch away at the environments, people, locations, crime scenes, and it's going to reveal the true emotions of what went on at that crime scene. And using these psychic powers, you dig deeper into the crimes and find out what's going on. It's a really cool mechanic, and a lot of these people are just out of their fucking minds due to this virus. Matter of fact, the opening case really struck a chord with me personally. There was a brutal crime scene where animals had been just slaughtered in animal cruelty, and these poor animals were just mercilessly slaughtered. And I gotta say, in real life, man, one thing that fucking grinds my gears to no end: animal cruelty. I cannot fucking tolerate it. I can't stand it. I hope there's a special place in hell for anybody that is mean or tortures animals. The game itself is just an amazingly dark, well-told game. Some of the localization can be a little spotty. It's just a lot of fun to use your powers, your psychic powers, and as you chip away using your Sigma, there's shinin, and there's kind of like fragments and memories that are attached to these people, and you kind of restore them as you use your powers. So overall, a very dark game, a very well constructed game, nothing like it on the DS. It's a great mystery. I really love these depressing kind of games. Playing through this and reaching the conclusion, a graphic novel like no other. Lux Pain is fantastic, and this actually comes with a nice art book, some great artwork in this. So definitely, if you're into graphic novels, visual novels that are more dark in nature, check out Lux Pain. You won't be disappointed. In terms of honorable mentions, I'll keep it short and sweet. I'd like to recommend the Lost in Blue series. Now, this is definitely not for everyone. It takes a certain kind of gamer with some patience to appreciate this series, and they definitely don't get better as they go on. I think the first one's my favorite. It can get pretty annoying. These characters definitely require constant hand-holding and drinking and feeding and burping and changing. No, I'm bullshitting, but it can be a pain in the ass tagging along with these characters and keeping them alive. But it is a really rewarding experience. There's all kinds of shit to explore on the islands, all kinds of stuff to craft, and all kinds of new discoveries waiting to happen. Venturing out further and further each time as you learn how to better manage your resources. It can be a really thrilling experience getting on that island and discovering the mystery for yourself. Item management and survival instincts and survival skills sound interesting to you. Definitely check this series out. It definitely makes full use of the DS and all of its capabilities in terms of touchscreen, 2 screens. Some pretty creative stuff. A really good series in my opinion. Hope you guys have enjoyed taking a look at some of my personal favorite underrated games on the DS. There really is something for everyone in the system. It's got a huge, vast library of games, and it can be quite intimidating when you're going to start collecting for it if you haven't already begun. So if you need some help, please, I hope you use this guide. I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you for watching. As always, Games of War is absolutely nothing without you.